Fantastic. Well, I want to welcome everyone to the Builders Call today. This is Casey Council Jiha. I don't think there's anyone on here that I don't know, so I won't do any kind of formal introductions. However, I like to always reset the context for this call. We have this call the first and the third Tuesdays of each month, 9 a.m. Pacific. And this call is for anyone that is looking to grow, build, scale their organizations and to learn in a collaborative and community environment around people that are doing it. Best practices and standing on the shoulders literally of giants that have come before you so that you can be strategic in what you do and equally in what you don't do. There's the to-dos and the not to-dos. And so the reason why we have this set up on an every other week cadence is we recognize that those of you that are out committed to growing and building people have your own things and resources that you're providing for them. And so in the second and the fourth weeks, taking leadership of your own organizations and how you choose to lead and what you choose to offer is important as well. And so we wanted to create a larger collaborative conversation and space, as well as leave space for individual leaders to execute their own vision. So sometimes on this call, we'll have interviews, and in those interviews, we're hearing from real people, and other times we'll pick topics and we'll jump in and we'll do a deep dive where we really jump deep on a topic to clarify understanding and execution, and then have the opportunity to go practice with that, come back and share what you've learned. So these calls are always moving and shifting and adjusting, and feel free to promote them to anyone that are in anybody that's in your organization, anybody that's looking to come into your organization and wanting to grow, to get a feel for the community and the people that are here. So today I am very excited to have Decatur Thornton on with us today. Hi, Decatur. And you know, we've been at a few different events together, and I don't know if you guys noticed this, however, everything about people in my experience is energy. And it's funny, we were sitting at this is a little bit of a side note, however, Rick and I were sitting and we were having breakfast, and there was this woman, this very attractive woman, that was sitting at the table next to us, and I happened to be sending a voice text, and on that voice text she picked up and heard something that she was interested in, and so she started up a conversation with me, and literally for the next 40 minutes that we were sitting at that table, we stopped the conversation. Okay, great, it was nice to meet you, at least 6 times, and she inserted herself back into our conversation and just kept talking. And Rick looked at me and he goes, you know, I see people, and you know, we assess people just by, you know, their energy and what we see of them initially. And he goes, and then they open their mouths sometimes and it's like a totally different story. Yeah. And he's like, you know, he's like, she just did not ever stop talking. I'm like, I know, she was, you know, very, very talkative about what she was talking about. So that was kind of a little round Robin Hood's barn. However, I've had the pleasure of being in person with Decatur on multiple occasions at events that have been held through EXP. And my experience of him is he's solid. There's a lot of people that, there's not a ton of people that I could say that about. However, through and through, when I look at Decatur, he looks right back, and energetically, he's one of those people that doesn't matter what the challenge is, doesn't matter what the obstacle is, bring it on. He's going to take it on head on and get through the other side of it, because he's committed and he's clear and he's certain and a solid human being. So I'm really excited to have you on the call today. Decatur, thank you so much for taking some of your time and being willing to make a contribution to our community.
Thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate that. And I'm an energy-led person, and Mr. Jiha and yourself, Miss Casey, you guys are pillars of the earth. I love you guys so much, and everything, the contributions that you guys bring to this organization, but more so what you bring to people. So I really appreciate that about you.
Well, thank you.
Particularly you. Every time I give you a hug, I'm just reignited. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. All right. Well, there's a lot of people on this call that don't know you. So we're going to go back a little bit. Obviously, the context of the Builders Call is around building an organization. However, what's really important to know is that at the end of the day, whether you're selling real estate, whether you're building an organization, we're in the business of people. And everyone has a story that brings them to different intersections in their life where they become open to things that they may not be, maybe we're not open to before, or we have an opportunity to influence the way that people think and create an opening by influencing their thinking and their thought process. So Decatur, before we get into the real estate part of your story, you essentially have two full-time careers. One of those is real estate and the other one is not. So tell everyone on the call a little bit about your background as we jump in.
Yeah, so hi, my name is Decatur Thornton, and I am I'm a special agent for a 3-letter agency. I've done that for over 20 something years, and I am creeping on 25 years. So I'm looking towards retirement in the next 3 years, right? On my full-time job. I'm tired of carrying a gun, so I'm about to hang that up and live a normal real estate life. So, but in that, because I think it's synonymous. So I think if we talk about one, we have to talk about the other. And I always like to mention that the people that I've met in my life have led me into the position that I am today, right? So, and we talk about relationships. We talk about relationships on the call and how powerful they are. And there's a couple paths that you can that you could be led in, right? There's 2 ways. There's good and there's bad, right? And there's really nothing in between, for me, right? So I come from a military background. I've served in the military for over 16 years. Did 2 tours in Iraq from 2006 to 2008. Once I got out of Iraq, I championed the thought of going into a law enforcement. Actually, I got recruited going into a law enforcement capacity. So that's what I did. That's the staple. And in that, I met so many wonderful people. It's kind of built a framework for me in terms of how I view and how I see life, how I see people, how I move throughout throughout life. So there are no parallels with me. Everything is kind of, there's so much flexibility in my life, and in the way that the way that I interact with individuals. It's a little different. But like I said, the framework comes from a military background, a law enforcement background. So, and it kind of sprouts into what I'm doing right now. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Joseph Trujillo, because he played an intricate part in my development in terms of successful entrepreneurship. I think everybody has a story, but there's not a one. I would never take all the credit for where I've been and where I'm going. So big ups to Joseph Trujillo being my business partner, and there's other ancillary, individuals that surround that, the passion that I have and really support me. I think Will Higgins is on this call. That's one individual, and I can name a couple more, but we'll just keep it there.
I love that. Well, thank you for the contribution of your service, obviously, and what you do with that 3-letter agency. We've got 3 letters and we've got 4 letters and, different things there. And I remember as you were saying that specifically when you brought up Joseph a year ago, standing on the beach in Cabo, and we were at the event there, and the 2 of you were having a conversation, and it's so reflective of the environment that shaped you, because the conversation was around this topic of, well, it was basically people that were kind of whining and sniveling and feeling discouraged about how fast they weren't growing, and this happened or that happened. And you guys were like looking at each other, just like not even on your radar. You're like, suck it up and move.
Yeah,
Suck
absolutely.
it up and move, right? So
Absolutely.
where you've been groomed in your career that led you to real estate and has led you to what you're building with EXP has obviously developed a mindset around how you approach life, how you approach obstacles, and the clarity and how you choose to, move through things. So tell us a little bit about how first off, well, that's two parts. How you decided to start a career in real estate while still having a full-time career somewhere else, and how long ago that was and how you've done those two things together.
Sure. So again, I keep on bringing up this individual's name because I've had so many interactions with, I mean, just you know, lonely nights, whole days. We're in a place that we probably shouldn't be. You know, numerous countries, and you know, a variety of different states. So at one point, I'm just going to tell you a little story. I was in the car, or I think we were in a truck, a blacked out vehicle, right, with Joseph Trujillo, man, and we were bouncing ideas. You know, when we have plenty of time in the car when we're doing observations, right? So we're in the vehicle, like, hey, man, and this is fresh on to our relationship. And I was like, man, you know, it would be nice to start some type of business. Like, what do you like to do? What do you like to do? Hey, man, we both like to go to the gym. So that led to it led to a CrossFit gym, and we were trainers. We had our own gym, and we did well. And we knew that we love people, and we loved the how we could, you know, help people progress in their mental and health wise. But it was nothing that could sustain because we didn't have the time, right? So we're working this full-time job, and we're in different countries, we're in different states, and we just couldn't sustain it. So we dissolved that business, and you know, we went on to something else. But then we another cold night, we're in a vehicle, and say, hey, man, you know what? Let's get into something else. All right, well, let's get into the clothing line. Me and you both like to, you know, dress like, you know, Mr. Jihad, and you know, like let's go ahead and you know, build up a clothing line. We had access to several different individuals that we met in the entertainment circuit, in the fashion industry. So we're like, hey, what if we get these individuals to wear our clothes, you know, bring the light to it, and we can go off into the sunlight. Well, we did that, and it was great. We had a great time, but again, we couldn't sustain it. So we dissolved that business, and shortly after that, Joseph had decided to do something else entrepreneur-wise. And I was like, you know what, bro? Handle your business. I'll see you on the other side. I chose to venture on and get my master's degree in clinical mental health. So I did that. I think it was a year and a half program. All the while, I didn't really realize what Joseph was doing. And he had told me before, you know, we kind of not necessarily split ways because we interact and we had a relationship. He told me he was getting into insurance. Well, when he said that, I automatically knew that he had flipped his wig, and that, you know, he was the devil in my eyes at that point, right? You know, I'm not going into insurance, so I was like, okay, but I still support him. Hey, brother, nice, cool, sounds great. Shortly after that, I got done with my master's degree. I graduated clinical mental health, champion of military families, coming back from Iraq in the adaptation of soldiers coming back and acclimating to the U.S. and in these different systems in the VA in the VA. So he told me, he said, "Hey, man, I didn't do you know, I didn't get into insurance, got into real estate, and I want you to join me." I was like, brother, I am absolutely not doing real estate. I don't even really like people that much, man. So I'm not doing that, man. And he was like, man, it's different. I'm telling you, you're gonna love it. Just trust me on this. And because I did have a heartfelt trust for Joseph Trujillo, I said, you know what? I got a little time. I'll take 3 months off and I'll do it. And I did it, and the rest is history.
And what year was that?
That was 2008. No, excuse me, 2020. I'm sorry, 2008. 2000. That's when I came back from Iraq. 2020. 2018.
17.
Excuse me. 2018. 2018.
Okay.
2018. Yeah.
So for the people that kind of just jumped on the call, we've got full-time military career, and you call it observation in a blacked out car. I call that surveillance. I don't know if they're different, but that's kind of what I
They're not. They're
those.
not. They're not.
They're
They're
not.
not.
Okay.
Right. Right.
Observation sounds so gentle.
Right.
So dark and lonely nights in the blacked out car in your military career with Joseph Trujillo. And so going from gym ownership to fashion to him deciding he's going to do insurance, you're out, you pursue your master's degree. Here's what I love about, there's a couple of themes that run through that. And this is important and why we're building on this, because I want everybody that's on the call to think about the people that you know and that you're in relationship with. And notice we haven't talked anything about EXP yet. However, if we're studying the human being called Decatur, here's somebody who's excelled in his military career. He very clearly values trusted relationships like the one that he had with Joseph. He very much wanted more and was already thinking about what was going to be next and what that could look like, and the willingness to go for it and create different things. And then the roadblocks, the inherent roadblocks that come up in entrepreneurship when you're not able to be there physically, boots on the ground 24/7 to run that business and have that business going. And yet, what continued throughout his story up till now is this connection and this trust, right? I always say that business moves at the speed of trust. People, when you build relationships and you have trust that exists in those relationships, they may be interested or not interested, open or not open, right? Joseph's doing insurance, Decatur's like, not me. However, it didn't change the trust that he had for Joseph. It just meant that he wasn't interested in insurance. Right. And sometimes when we're talking to people and looking at building and, bringing people over to EXP, we get all butthurt, for lack of a better word, when somebody says no, and we take it personally, like it has something to do with us. And it just means that they're not open to that, or they're not interested in that at that point in time. It has nothing to do with the individual, right? Because Decatur and Joseph have this relationship, and it was just he didn't want to do insurance, so he went and got his master's and wanted to do something else, right?
Well, can I speak to that real quick?
Yeah, jump in.
So I'm thinking to myself, I kind of, I'm a mirror type guy, right? And I really has anybody ever looked in the mirror at themselves? I mean, really took a deep dive and looked at yourself in a mirror, maybe after a workout, after you wake up. And what does that mirror, what does that reflection tell you? It should tell you everything that you need to know for that morning, from the night after, in moving forward, right? I've taken several looks at myself in the mirror over a course of time, and I've seen some things that I just did not like. There's some things that I changed. There's some things that I changed in the course of my life that was just because I took a look in the mirror, right? But I want to speak to this real quick, is that it wasn't just Joseph, because Joseph supported me in a lot of different things that I wanted, different ventures that I tackled, right? Such as I am a mixed martial artist. So throughout my MMA career, Joseph held events for me, right? Every competition that I was in, he was there. When I went, when I went semi-pro, I mean, all through that journey, he was there, right? So the level of trust that was developed wasn't just because, Joseph, was a great guy. It was because of the support that he was providing me, right, throughout my journey. So the trust didn't arbitrarily just come into existence. It was built, right? And because of the support that he's given me over a course in a period of time, when he told me something or when he said something to me, it mattered. And I was able to hear him in a way to where I wasn't dismissive. I was like, hey, you know what? Because this man has supported me in ways that nobody else has, he didn't have to be there, and training with mitts, that meaning, on the beach. It was a very scenic beach, and it was pretty awesome. But he didn't have to do any of that, and that in my mind led to me, say like, look, okay, when this man says something, you know what, I'm gonna actually listen. I'm gonna give him 100%, and I'm gonna implement. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I trust him enough to move forward in that light. So, and I just wanted to share that trust just doesn't come just because it's over time, and it's shared, it's cared, it's nurtured. And if you develop that type of relationship, then people are more just to see exactly what you're speaking to, and because if it fits them, which in this case, if we're just diving, if we're talking about EXP, most entrepreneurs, most professionals in real estate, it will fit their narrative, right? One way or the other. So I just wanted to kind of speak to that, and set the kind of fundamental base of that relationship that we had that led me to making this real estate a real thing.
Yeah. So it's 2018. I mean, and Joseph's hard to say no to, let's be honest.
Indeed, he has a persuasive, yeah.
So it's 2018, and you get your real estate license. However, you still today have a full-time career in the military. So, a lot of times we'll talk to agents that don't have anything they're doing except for real estate, and they're not very busy with it, or they think my life is so busy, how can I build a career? Yet you have a full-time career in the military, and you have, in your career in real estate, over 350 homes since you started in 2018, Icon Award with EXP. I would like you to talk so that everybody on the call can understand nuts and bolts of like, how do you create that?
Okay. And I'm glad you asked that. And when we first started this about 4 years ago, I was really in my infancy stages of really trying to figure out who I am, not necessarily in business, just to this world, right? And when you come from Iraq, or you come from law enforcement, you get lost in service, right? My ideal of service is putting others before myself, right? So how do you do that as an entrepreneur when this is a winning game, right? You have to have the mindset that you are going to win. So if I'm being honest with you, I am just now coming into who I am in this entrepreneurial, in this entrepreneurial dynamic. I still am. I'm still learning. I'm still educating myself. I'm still surrounding myself around my tribe and developing, and getting, different nuggets and developing, different ways and different strategies to be the best entrepreneur that I could be. But where I am right now, I think, I believe in a higher power. I thank God. But here's what I do know is that I like to win. I didn't know that before. I had no clue that I like to win so much, right? And throughout my life is really what propelled me, to do great things in a military and a law enforcement setting, to come back from Iraq unscathed, to mentally, get stronger. But I love to win. So if it's taking care of a client, if it's attraction, I have a winning mentality now. That could be at a detriment, which it has been, or that it's all about growth, right? So I've grown to where I'm able to kind of scale and know that when I'm winning, it's at the benefit of the whole, right? Not just for me to feel good, because when you're in Iraq, And when you're in a wartime situation, or even in law enforcement, your job is to come back home. No matter how you get there, is to come back home. In my mind, that was winning, right? I had won. I had won the day, I had won the night, and I am back home with the people that care for me, or with something that was known. What I realized later is that was the unknown. What I did know and what I started to develop was a sense of war, right? That was my norm. But in that was synonymous to me with winning. So my mind, the way that I think and the way that I progress and the way that I communicate in terms of like, for Joseph, we come from such a very aggressive, background. And a lot of people would not understand that, right? But it's relative in some crazy, strange, twisted way to real estate. There's a bunch of sharks in this industry, right? There's a bunch of individuals that are not good people. I'm a protector, right? I am a service provider. This looks familiar. And the good thing about it is I don't have to learn very much. In a matter of 4 years, I've been able to do more in 4 years than most individuals have done in 20 years of their real estate career. Why is that? And for me, it's because I like to win. So I hope that, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So, if you look at, have you read the book Psycho-Cybernetics?
I have not.
So it was written years and years ago. And in that book, really what it talks about is the power of identity. And this is exactly what you're talking about, and identity being transferable into different things. So
Sure.
in the context of war, in the context of law enforcement, where your job is to come home, and that for you is winning, that, the higher context is winning, and you take that as who you are and now transfer that into the industry of real estate, where it's serving, it's protecting, it's winning, it's for the client, right? And you take that same thing and have applied it now in an entrepreneurial endeavor in your real estate career, which is, 4 years, 350 plus transactions, speaks for itself during that time. So let's move into the, the EXP side of things, as this is a builder's call, and the attraction piece. What was it that had you first open to, or what was it that you saw? If we can go back to the day, I always say it's only when we look back that we can connect the dots. If you were to look back and connect the dots, what had you get to the point where you realized as an entrepreneur, you were sitting in front of a different kind of an opportunity than any of the ones that you had been in front of before? And describe, how that came together for you and what you saw as possible for your future.
Correct. So I was in a traditional model. At first, we came into a very, mom and pops type, real estate. We had a lot. I say we because Joseph, we did a lot of things together, So he brought me into this into this opportunity. So it's, I'm going to mention him. And so anyway, we came into this opportunity where there was a lot of flexibility, right? And I enjoyed it. I was able to, take what I've known for over 20 years and the people that I've bled with, the people that I've sweated with, and able to bring them into home ownership, right? Without all the fluff, and I can protect them. I can make sure that they get a good deal, and I can try to put money in their pocket every time, right? So that was really the foundation. Like, look, and once I made $10,000 my first deal in real estate. And I honestly thought that the IRS was going to come get me the next day and put me in jail. And I was like, this is way too, right? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, they're going to come get me. They've been looking for me for a long time and I'm right here. But yeah, so I'm wondering what's going to happen. So I held on to that money. I know a good year. Didn't spend it. It was like, yeah, they can come get it if they want. It's right here, right? But what I realized is that this was something that I can do, and I can do it at a high level. So that was at the mom and pop. As a matter of fact, Miss Glenn is on this call. She was my broker. Yes, she was my broker, And, we were just humble beginnings and we were rocking out, like I said, and I appreciate her for giving me the opportunity, but it was a great, great start. And we didn't know anything. We were wild, wild westing it. We were guns blazing, just helping good people. It wasn't till a person in Texas told me about the opportunity of EXP, right? And actually, I won't say any names, but she actually works for a 3-letter agency as well, right? And we happened to cross paths. We've been to some of the same law enforcement conferences, all this good stuff. So she calls me, "Hey D, you got to check out this opportunity." I was like, "Well, what's it called?" It's real estate. I see that you're over there doing great things, in real estate. You got to check out this model. And I was like, nah, I don't think so. There's a lot of flexibility here. I'm good. You know what I do for a living. I'm good, right? She's like, you just have to. But she didn't articulate it in a way to where it got my attention. What she did was she was so excited about the opportunity that she failed to mention what the idea of what the idea of this opportunity is. So right. Didn't mean that it wasn't real. It just I didn't want a part of it because it just didn't seem right to me, right?
Okay, so we have enthusiasm on fire. However, nothing really attaching or connecting to the dots as to why there was enthusiasm. And so that for you is like just a no.
Yeah, absolutely not. No.
This is a good learning for people that are enthusiastic. There's got to be substance behind the enthusiasm. Okay, keep going.
But she didn't call me from a jail cell. So I'm like, you know what? It's not that she's trying to sell anything. She was just excited. So I mentioned it to Joseph, right? I said, hey, man, our friend from a 3-letter agency called me. And she was speaking of this new, model called EXP. Joseph, he's funny. He's a funny guy. He said, you know what, man, I've never really heard of it, and it sounds like, it's pretty lame. Let's keep on doing what we're doing. I said, all right, cool, bro. So we did. 2 months later, no, it wasn't even 2 months. A month later, Joseph hits me back and he says, bro, we got to check out this EXP. I said, wait, hold on, man. You were the same guy that told me this was goddamn malarkey, man. What are you talking about? What do you mean check it out? He's like, man, I'm already checked it out. I went to the seminar, man. This is going to be a game changer. I'm telling you, man, we got to jump into it. I'm like, well, what about Glenn? We love her. He's like, man, I know. I love her and I'm going to tell her about it. I'm going to tell her about it. But that was probably the hardest conversation that I know he had. And it was even harder for me to even say, yeah, well, I'm going to try this out. So I remember I was in Cape Cod and Joseph was like, hey, man, did you do it? Did you transfer? Did you I was like, all right, man, I'm going to do it. So I did it, spent $149 without a blink of an eye. And how it got me was basically I trusted Joseph, but I knew that this was a game changer. When she said something to me about it, the woman in Texas, I knew that it was different. But now that it had a little bit more substance to it, a little more validity, and from a guy that I trusted, Joseph, and then I actually heard what they were saying. I'm like, you know what? If this doesn't work, I'll just go back to what I was doing. I'll go back to Glenn and say, hey, look, I made a mistake, and let's keep on rocking and rolling. But what happened was, I had earned and I had made money that I didn't know, that I had no idea that I had access to. From the stock perspective, I had earned a little bit over $200,000 that year, and Joseph and said, hey man, let's go get a rental property in LA, and he had told me that he was going to use his stocks to purchase this property. And I was like, okay, well, how do you do that? And I didn't even know that I had $200,000. I wasn't paying attention to it because I was just selling real estate, having a great time. And once I saw that, once I actually saw the numbers, my business completely changed. Overnight, it changed.
Now,
Overnight, I
this is
knew.
really interested in you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, overnight it changed, and I was when I bought that property, which is probably wasn't the best move in the world, but we did. We still have it, but it changed the trajectory of my life. I knew that I had done something good. I knew everything that I have done to lead up to real estate had led me to this moment, right? To where I can have over, almost 500 agents globally, right? I can make, $400,000 in commission, right? I can essentially do anything that I want, anything that my mind thought of doing, I could do, right? And I'm still doing that to this day. And then I can partner with great people. And then on the service side, I can still provide people with a great service, with who I am, my character, and everything was there in a box. I had no reason of searching for anything new, right? It satisfies everything.
Yeah. So there's a couple of key things that you mentioned, and we're back to influence, right? So we were initially talking trust, and then we're talking influence. Because when Joseph, rained on your parade, the parade was over. No, not EXP, right? And then, so he doesn't just have trust. You've got influence, and
Right.
then a couple months later, he comes back and he's like, "Dude, this is it." And so there's the influence again, right? And so what I want people on the call to start thinking about is, how are you developing influence with people? How are you expanding your influence with people? How are you deepening your influence with people? And it's very clear from your story and the dynamic with Joseph is that this was repeat exposure over time in many different situations and circumstances, personally and professionally, right? From business ventures to the MMA to the military, it was repeat exposures, that there was that influence, not just trust. So I want top of mind as you're going out on the other side of this call today, for people that are on the call, I want you to, write down this question: what is my plan, or what is my strategy to deepen my influence with the people that I'm going to touch, and develop trust at a higher level? However, influence is key, because you can have trust without having influence. Like, yeah, I trust you, he's a good guy. However, influence is something that is going to cause someone to take action or keep someone from taking action because of your ability to influence them, right? So, you've been here at EXP for a few years. There's, close to 500 agents in your organization. And what would you say have been the things that, number one, what is the thing that was the most valuable learning lesson that you had, Decatur, around the growing and building of the organization that you have? And generally learning lessons comes from things that maybe didn't work so well. And that's, there's more learning in those things than there is in the success sometimes. So what would you say is one thing that's happened in your experience that's been the greatest learning lesson that you've been able to take into the organization that you're, growing and building and nurturing?
The best thing that I've learned, I'm still learning and I'm still growing. I've learned that the things that I desire, the things that I want for me, and everything is not always going to be right. Some things are going to be wrong, but to be around people that are going to advise you and that are going to give you a real clear view of how they see you, right? And how you show up is very important. Is it very important to have around to build yourself, to acknowledge and build that growth, right? So for me, what I've learned is that I can detach and grow in a way that I didn't know that I could grow, and I can still be supported to where that growth it really affects the whole, right? So my organization is built up of different individuals, different thoughts, different ideologies, but in that there's no conformity, right? Because I am my own individual, and how I see and how I want to show up with people it may not be how Joseph shows up with the people that he wants to influence, right? But because I have that support that I need, champion, the community that I want to influence, or the individuals that I want to influence, that I can do that wholeheartedly and not have a back thought of I need to do it a certain way, right? So I have a flexibility of doing so many different things and being supported, and that's important to me, right? Because there's in my little head, I want to do so many things. There's so many thoughts because the backgrounds that we have are so diverse, so different, that I can't just come to just one thing. So I might want to do this one day, this the next day, and as long as I feel like I'm supported, I will be the very best version of myself every day that I wake up, as long as I know that I have the support. Now, what happens when I don't have that support is that I go into a deep, I go into reflections of my past, right? And that's never really good if you're living in your past, right? So I'm always trying to bring my past forward. Everything is a learning experience, right? So I circle back to Iraq. There was so many learning experiences in Iraq. When you're there alone, you don't have access to family, you don't access to friends. You have, your little core group. You can't go outside of what we call a FOB, field operation, your field operation base. And when you do, you know that there's going to be disaster, turmoil, and that you may not be able to come home, right? So you take all of that and then you bring it forward once you do make it home, and then I know for my safety, my mind, for my growth, that support is necessary.
So you said a couple. You said a couple of key things. So one, your initial thing, and you've said this on a couple of the questions, was I'm still learning.
I'm still learning.
I'm still learning. And I think that that's a really important thing. There's a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. And that is the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset is I'm good at it or I'm not good at it. I'm good at this agent attraction thing or I'm not good at this agent attraction thing. And a growth mindset is if I'm willing to look at what worked and what can be improved, I can grow and become great at anything. And so clearly you have a growth mindset based on the fact that you've said, I'm still learning, right? Then the second thing that you mentioned was who you're surrounding yourself with and leaning into that support. People that are going to tell you not what you want to hear, but what there is that you actually need to hear so that you can be the best version of yourself. And that conversely, when you isolate or go into aloneness, which how many of you on this call can relate to this, when things aren't going so well or you're up against challenges or obstacles, you isolate and pull back. You pull back from the people that have your back. You pull back from the people that see you, that know you. You go, oh, I'm just busy. My real estate business is blowing up right now. I'm just busy. Or, I'm just busy. And it's really a mask for isolating and withdrawing. There's an old proverb that says the one isolating himself will seek his own selfish gain. Against all practical wisdom, he will break forth. And when you said that, when we go into places of isolation, solitary confinement is a punishment, right? Because what happens to people's minds, like we go to the past, we think about stuff that doesn't work, we get ourselves stuck when just so close to where we are as a community of people, that if we choose to go the opposite direction and lean into those people that are our community here, that are there to support our vision, our goals, our dreams, our aspirations, and they have our back, literally, because we work like a community and a family. and we lean into that engagement versus withdraw into isolation and the negativity that can happen when we don't plug in. Those are two, very different things. So I think those are some great lessons of, how you've been able to take, again, transferable skill sets from where your background, your military background, into how that applies here. Because just by a show of hands, how many on this call, like, just raise your hands when things are going, rough or tough and not so well, do you retreat and, pull back and seek isolation? And maybe it doesn't become such a pretty place because of the conversations that start happening in your mind, right? Yeah, thank you for your honesty. For those of you that raised your hands, and for those of you that didn't, well, maybe you just didn't get your hand up in time. Because that tends to be, as human beings, we like to think, oh, well, I'm different. And it's like, well, yes, everyone is a unique person for sure. However, there's things that are kind of standard operating procedures in the manual called being a human being. And what we know is that when we have a healthy balance of challenge and support from people that really have our back and love and care about us, that is where we thrive. We don't thrive so much in isolation. So Decatur, as you look at the last, how many years has it been? Has it been 3 years with the XP?
4 years, 4.5. Yeah.
4 years now. Okay.
No, 3 years. You're right. 3 years. I'm sorry. Apologize.
Okay. Yeah. So 4 years in the industry, 3 years with EXP. What are the things that you do every day as it relates to agent attraction? What are the things that you consistently do that have created great results in growing and building and serving the organization that you have?
Right. So let me say this, because I just want to be respectful of everybody's time, but I feel led to tell this story real quick, and then I want to answer that question. So, so people don't show up as themselves, and I realized that quickly in real estate. That I'm used to dealing with individuals that are very open and vulnerable, right? They don't know that because they really hide themselves in toughness, but they are truly weak, right? And I think that's how we get a lot of things done, especially in wartime situations, is that we're dealing with a lot of weak individuals that are willing to do anything and sacrifice anything in their life to make sure that everybody, comes home safely. So I ask you on this call, on this Zoom, how many individuals on this call are hiding from themselves, do not really understand exactly the power that you have, the individuals that you are you don't want to know who you are. I ask you, and I say to you, please you cannot hide from yourself. You just, it's completely impossible to hide from yourself, because you will turn around the corner and you will find exactly who you are. And in that, you will recognize the power that you have. I'll tell you one quick story. When I came back from Iraq, and Iraq played a big part of my life in my mindset and who I am and where I'm going from. But when I came back from Iraq, I looked at some things, right? I remember being in my living room with my girlfriend at the time, and we were watching Forrest Gump. And in Forrest Gump, there's a scene where there's a war scene, right? Forrest Gump and Bubba Gump, remember? Right? So in that, I was automatically triggered. I had no clue why. I didn't know what had just happened, but something in my head just flipped. And I ran out the room and I hid up under a sink. And I hid up under that sink, I know, for about a good 2 hours. I didn't know what I was hiding from. I couldn't identify what the problem was, but I knew in my head that I could not move. The girlfriend came in there after maybe about, maybe a little after 2 hours and simply said, "Are you okay?" And I snapped out of it. Wherever I was at, I snapped out of it. And she left the room, and I remember distinctly turning around my face and looking in the mirror. At that time, I knew that I was not the same individual that I was 3 years ago. I knew that some things had changed, but in that, I knew that there was power in that, and that I had the power to change exactly and be who the person that I wanted to be. I just had to figure it out, right? But that mirror said everything. The mirror told me, it gave me the information. I was able to download it, and I was able to implement a plan change. That is the power of that mirror. And I ask each and every one of you guys, if you guys are having, issues in your business, or you're having consistency, problems, look in the mirror. The answer is right there, and it will be there for a lifetime. So anytime you feel a little disconnect, separation, any of these hardships that you may or may not be going through, man, look in the mirror. The answer is right there. And I don't mean just, brush by them. I mean, take a deep dive, look directly into your eyes, see the whites, see the colors, see the different strains, and you will know exactly what you're supposed to be doing and where you're supposed to go and where you've been. I think it's most important to know where you've been so you know where you're going. I think that's very, very important. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you before I got off. But to the last question, if you don't mind asking that again, because I thought that was important. But would you mind saying that again, Ms. Casey?
Yeah, before I do, Joseph's got his hand up.
Am I on?
You're on.
All right, I love it. I'll make it quick because I know we have a few minutes here. Yeah, Dee, thanks for your vulnerability on this call, my brother. And just for everybody in the group, I know this man better than anybody on this call, and some of his greatest accomplishments and contributions, not just to us as individuals or citizens, but to the United States overall, will never go acknowledged. Right, first and foremost. So thank you for your service, my brother, and the things that you've done behind the scenes. But one thing I want to say about Decatur, and this will tie into the question that Casey had asked, is the type of leadership. Like, what kind of leadership has Decatur brought over to EXP that has enabled him to build, a 500, organization within a few years? Is that this man right here? First of all, he leads with humility, and you can tell that's the kind of person that he is. So people have followed him. People have, wanted him to be, in a leadership position with them and as partnership, because he just does it. They want to voluntarily follow this man because what he says is truth and he keeps his word. So the best part about that with Decatur is that he never leads with title or position. Right? So he's only been in real estate a few years. He doesn't have the benefit of having 15 years at this company, 20 years here with all these titles. So he leads with his service and what, he promises other people, he follows up and he makes it happen. And that word has spread amongst our real estate community, especially out here in Southern California, where people know if you connect, if you align with Decatur, what he says is golden. Okay. And so that leadership trait about him leading with humility is what's enabled him, in my opinion, to be able to build something phenomenal here. And then lastly, his just supreme quality of integrity is something that I've always respected. And again, if I could look in the mirror and see that man looking back at me, I know I'm in good company. So I just wanted to kind of share that.
I love that. And thank you for jumping in with that, because you guys literally have been in the trenches, so to speak. And in multiple, multiple different settings, and you work so closely together. Particularly, I know you guys work very closely together as it relates to the organization and growing and building and supporting the organization. So the question, Decatur, was what are the things that you feel like you consistently do every day in this context of agent attraction or growing the organization that are, you don't have to think about, it's just part of your everyday that you would say is aligned from an integrity perspective around the vision that you have of growing and building and servicing the organization that you have?
Right. So for me, it's just about showing up. Right. So in terms of attraction, it's not truly my strong suit. However, I don't know how you get, a little shy of 500 individuals and it not be your strong suit, right? So, from a human standpoint, I just show up, right? If you show up and you show people exactly who you are, there's going to be a natural attraction. Now, I remember coming into this organization and I shot out thousands and thousands of DMs to individuals telling them about this opportunity, right? Most of them didn't say anything to me. Well, 2 years later, there's a little under 500 individuals in my organization, Mr. Higgins being one of them, right? Mr. Higgins, I'll say, we developed a strong, intimate relationship over a course of years, but he was and this is an example of one of those individuals that I reached out to in that 2-year span, just, trying to get a flicker of, conversation, right? It didn't work, but that consistency and showing up every day, no matter rain, sleet, or snow, that is what moves the needle. And that's what's helped me in my business and attraction.
I love it. I love it. And I love the simplicity of it because there's no complication with it. It's not like complicated. It's show up, man. Show up, be you, go serve people, put yourself out there. And, as we are wrapping up this call, heading towards the top of the hour, I got your message, and Mr. Higgins, where did he go? His face just disappeared. There he is. You're up in the top left corner now. Somebody must have popped off. I would love for you to share as we're wrapping up this call as well.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'll touch on a couple of things that are strong qualities for Decatur that I don't know if he shared or if you guys picked up, but what I've seen, first of all, when I came over 2 years ago, I came over from Keller and I was solo, running by myself, right? And what I would say is day one, these guys accepted me, right? Like as strong as their relationship is, day one, I stepped in and they're like, okay, this is our brother. And everything opened up, right? We've made money together. We've lost money together. We've broken bread. We've been, vulnerable. I've had, I went through a huge depression last year and these guys supported me, but what I would say about Decatur is that his leadership style, first of all, that's how he's produced. Because of his leadership style, he has the keen ability to expose strengths in people that they don't even know that they have. And he fully trusts everybody until they give him a reason not to, right? So to his detriment, right? Because I'm super black and white. This is why we all work together so well. But Decatur will find, he looks into people's souls and he sees the good in them. And I think that is the separator. And that's why he's been able to get to where he is, because like he says, he champions everybody. And for me, he supports you. Like we talk every day, you know what I'm saying? And he literally supports his people to his detriment sometimes, but he will support you. And I think that's the piece that got to where he is. And for me, if you're looking at your rev share numbers and they're not where you are, it's a true reflection of how much you've given. And that's why his number is where it is.
Absolutely. So there's a couple of things I love as we wrap up this call. Number one, Decatur, thank you for being willing to share today your vulnerability, saying it like it is. You clearly are a good human through and through. And for all of the stuff that none of us will ever know or see, and probably we don't want to know or see, because I'm guessing, horrific on some level. Thank you for the service and continued and ongoing service that you have in the capacity that you're in the military, and then extending that and paying it forward into other ways. I love that you have the American Dream Specialist as your tagline, because it's not just about the American dream, it's specializing in helping people realize their dreams, which is an incredible way to serve as well. And you found a vehicle to be able to do that through real estate and with EXP. And it's very clear that there is a brotherhood, and you could say brotherhood, sisterhood. Really what we're talking about is community of people that care about each other and have each other's backs, and that want to see each other win, and serving at that level and loving at that level. And sometimes that means business, and sometimes that means life. It's not just business, it's the whole enchilada of the human experience. And so you can feel, I could feel anyway, I'm sure everyone on the call can feel as well, the love and the connection and the support that you've created, all of you, from working together intimately day in and day out, and serving and helping agents and the community, and really going above and beyond the call of duty every day. So thank you for who you are. Thank you for who you continue to be and all that you've contributed. It's been a gift having you on the call today. I know I'm getting text messages of people recognizing, just so grateful for what you shared and how open you were and transparent and vulnerable. And we really appreciate you and who you are. So everyone, make it a great day. We will get this recording out. It will be on Empire Builders Pro, and we will see you the first Tuesday of next month at 9 a.m. Make it a great day, everyone.